Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Jurassic Games. Last time, we started our coverage of the video games developed for The Lost World. And just like with Jurassic Park, there's so many that they couldn't all be covered in one video. So this time, we'll be wrapping up our coverage of games based on The Lost World. And unlike Jurassic Park, The Lost World's tie-in games become far more varied as time went on. And so we won't even have any platformers to discuss today. Also, unlike the Jurassic Park tie-in games, some of these came out in the years following the release of the movie, rather than alongside it. And so we'll be taking a look at these games in chronological order, beginning with the somewhat more obscure game, Chaos Island: The Lost World. Chaos Island: The Lost World was released in October 1997 for Windows, only a few months after The Lost World's theatrical release, and was developed by DreamWorks Interactive. This is perhaps the most unique game we've had a chance to look at thus far, because this is, of all things, a real-time strategy game. The game takes place during an alternate timeline of events of The Lost World, and features the main cast of the movie with Ian Malcolm, Sarah Harding, Nick Van Owen, Eddie Carr, Kelly Curtis, and John Hammond. What's most interesting about this, however, is that every one of the film actors reprises their role here, so there aren't any stand-ins at all. This is the highest number of returning actors in a Jurassic Park game in the entire franchise, with only Jurassic World Evolution coming close, so big props to Chaos Island for that. Something I want to note before we go any further is that this game, along with all the others we'll be discussing today, have save functionality. Hallelujah, we've been waiting for this the entire time, and we're finally in the age of being able to save your game. Anyways, the game itself begins with a cutscene that starts with a spooky T-Rex attack, that then cuts to Malcolm, Eddie, and Nick arriving on Isla Nublar while Hammond gives them a mission briefing.
Sorry to wake you. What? What is it? Mr. Hammond's on the radio.
Oh, tell him I stepped out.
Too late for that, old boy. I've got too much invested in this mission. So how's the team holding up?
Well, Eddie's too nervous, and Nick's too confident. I'm not sure which is worse.
Great. Splendid. Listen, Ian.
Sarah is already on the island and has in her possession a DNA serum that allows them to control any dinosaurs that they hatch. The idea of a special technology that allows people to control dinosaurs is one that has continued to pop up over the years, especially most recently with the Jurassic World live show and in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, and also more historically in a specific game we'll be discussing later on. I just find it interesting that this concept continues to rear its head, with this game being the earliest example of it that I'm aware of. In any case, Nublar serves as a sort of tutorial ground for what the rest of the game will be like. As mentioned previously, Chaos Island: The Lost World is a real-time strategy game, and it focuses on building a base camp and buildings, collecting supplies, and hatching new dinosaurs for the players to control as units. The game is made up of 12 levels, and each level begins with a sort of fog of war that must be uncovered by sending units out to traverse the level in search of supplies, eggs, and mission objectives. The first level is on Isla Nublar, as mentioned, but most of the game takes place on Isla Sorna. The player character will encounter two main types of enemies: wild dinosaurs and engine hunters. The game features 8 dinosaurs from the films, including Parasaurolophus, Compsognathus, Pachycephalosaurus, Dilophosaurus, Stegosaurus, Velociraptor, Tyrannosaurus, and Triceratops. The hunters are there for the same purpose they are in the films, though I guess they're far more aggressive in this game since they attack the protagonists on sight. Many of the missions revolve around fighting and stopping the hunters from taking the dinosaurs off the island, including missions where you rescue both the baby T-Rex and its mother from the engine hunters. The game in general has the look and feel of the original Command & Conquer, with just a bit of a Jurassic Park twist. When moving the film characters around, they will give you lines from a limited pool of dialogue that can get quite annoying after a while.
Whatever.
That's a wrap.
But the characters do have some comedic lines and quotes in the cutscenes.
Nick, are you on radio?
No, I'm right behind you, Doc.
Hey, don't. I wish you wouldn't do that.
Look, I don't think any of us are safe. We should have some dinosaurs for protection or something.
Yeah, you're right.
The soundtrack for this game, like The Lost World for the original PlayStation before it, was composed by none other than Michael Giacchino. Though unlike his soundtrack for that game, the Chaos Island soundtrack is far more subdued and doesn't really have as many memorable tracks for me. Not bad, but definitely not on the level of his previous work on the PlayStation game. At the end of the game, you get the engine communication center working after the engine team destroys the casts, and the cast escape Ankylosaurus via helicopter. But wait, there's more! Chaos Island has a bonus level after the end of the main story where you get to play as the bull Tyrannosaurus as he rampages through downtown San Diego to make it back to its child on the dock as in the film. It's a nice, cool way to end the game on a similar note to the film it's based on. Overall, Chaos Island is a pretty fun and unique experience as far as Jurassic Park games go, as there aren't any other RTS Jurassic Park games out there. The more well-known RTS game series like Command & Conquer might be objectively better games, but if you want something with a Jurassic Park coat of paint on it, you can't go wrong with Chaos Island. Next up on our list is perhaps one of the most infamous Jurassic Park games of all time, and one which just had its 22nd birthday on October 28th. This game is mostly known for how broken and buggy it is, but also for its surprisingly large impact on the FPS gaming genre and the industry as a whole. I am speaking of none other than Trespasser. Trespasser was also developed by DreamWorks Interactive and released for PC in 1998. Now, the difficult thing for me in regards to discussing Trespasser is that Trespasser is probably the most well-documented game in the franchise, as it's had any number of news articles, YouTube videos, and postmortems written about it. Even the Angry Video Game Nerd has made a video about it specifically. So rather than go super in-depth with how the game plays and all of its problems, I'll provide a brief overview of that and then get into why I myself find Trespasser to be such an interesting and important game in the Jurassic Park game lexicon. As I mentioned, there's a number of great videos and articles out there detailing Trespasser's issues in history, so I encourage you to check those out once you're done with this video, as it's very intriguing and I don't have the time to go as in-depth with it as I would like to. The basics of Trespasser are that it was a first-person shooter and puzzle game which introduced game physics in a way that would not be properly implemented in another game until Half-Life 2, with even Valve stating that Trespasser was an inspiration for the physics in that game. The game features a variety of semi-open levels set on Ankylosaurus, and you control the lead character's arms in a way sort of similar to how one would do it now in a VR game, except this was a PC game from 1998. As you can imagine, this manner of input is incredibly clunky and is one of the game's many problems. The aforementioned lead character is actually voiced by Academy Award-winning actress Minnie Driver, with Trespasser being one of only 2 of her video game credits. Perhaps one of the most well-known features, unless you consider Bugs features, in which case, hello Todd, is the fact that rather than the game having a HUD, you can view your health by looking down at the magical tattoo on the player character's breasts. And ammo is counted out loud by the player character, letting you know how many bullets remain in a weapon. The game has a large variety of interesting concepts, and as has been explained by former developers of the game, had the game had more time to be developed, it very well could have been a truly phenomenal game. But sadly, a very rushed development and overly ambitious goals by the team led to Trespasser barely becoming a shadow of what it could have been. But hey, it did indirectly lead to the creation of the Xbox, so it's got that going for it, right? Well, actually, Trespasser has 2 things in particular that make it more than just a historical footnote in the shadows of better games. For, in my humble opinion, Trespasser has one of the greatest performances of any character in the franchise. And I am of course talking about the Hammond memoirs which play throughout the game. John Hammond is once again played by Richard Attenborough, this being the second and final game featuring his voice. While his performance in Chaos Island was good, it is in Trespasser that the sheer quality of his craft that Attenborough had attained is on full display.
My name is John Parker Hammond. I was born on March 14th, 1928. What follows is a record of certain events in which I took part between the years 1980 and 1997, on an island I will call Site B. Site B was not to be a theme park, but a research station. This was where we did the real work.
He is not an actor phoning it in for some tie-in video game that he doesn't care about, as with how most actors treat these types of games. Rather, Richard Attenborough plays John Hammond in this game with the same amount of passion and quality as he played the character in both Jurassic Park and The Lost World. I actually find his performance in this game to be my favorite of his in the entire franchise, which is partially due to the material he's working with. Hammond's memoirs throughout the game detail the entire history of InGen, beginning with Hammond's early days as a businessman and running all the way through until after the events of The Lost World. His monologues are filled with discussions of important moments in the creation of Jurassic Park and the dinosaurs, including moments like the time they first discovered that DNA was truly preserved in the amber and was readable. Perhaps the monologue's writing itself might not be of the utmost interest if read by anyone else, but with Richard Attenborough's narration, it's taken to a whole new level of viscerality and emotion. I can fully believe that it is John Hammond speaking to me, and not the actor. The performance is that strong. Although the game itself is not canon to the films anymore, although it originally was meant to be, and it features a number of inconsistencies with the films, I tend to use Trespasser's Hammond memoirs to fill in the blanks of the known canon. As the performance is so good, I feel it's a waste to ignore it entirely. So long as the entire thing isn't contradicted in a future film, I will take as much of the memoirs as canon as I possibly can. This aspect of the game impacted me so much that as soon as Jurassic World Evolution was announced in 2017, I had one main goal once the game came out: set the memoir audio to appropriate footage captured within Jurassic World Evolution. I then proceeded to make that series 3 times, each time improving over the last as the tools and game content were updated so that I could make it to the best of my ability. If you have never listened to Hammond's memoirs and want to know what the hell I've been gushing over for the past few minutes, I'll leave a link in the description that'll take you to the most up-to-date version of my series, and I'd greatly appreciate it if you took a look. It was certainly a big passion project for me. I also recommend checking out the YouTube channel Jurassic Time and their website, as they've done a great job covering the subject as well. Earlier, I mentioned another thing that Trespasser has going for it, and that thing isn't in the game itself, but rather its community. Trespasser, even after over 20 years, still has a dedicated fan base that have worked to modify and improve the game so that it can be closer to that original vision. Modders have made compatibility and bug patches, new maps and levels, increased visual fidelity in the game, and a lot more. It's impressive to see a modding community survive as long as it has, as most games would have generally died out by now. Much of this community is based out of trescom.org, which I'll also leave a link to in the video description, so if you're interested in the Trespasser community or modding the game, I highly advise that you head over there. They've done a ton of great work over there over the years. A third and final thing I'll briefly touch upon in regards to Trespasser is the soundtrack. This game's soundtrack was not composed by Michael Giacchino, but rather composer Bill Brown. The lack of Giacchino does not mean this game's soundtrack is lacking though. On the contrary, actually. Trespasser has a really great soundtrack, and it's one I like to listen to from time to time. I'll play a few snippets from the soundtrack for you. You can actually download the soundtrack to the game with the permission of the composer from Jurassic Time's website. So if you like what you hear and want to download your own copy of the soundtrack, you can find it there worry-free. All in all, Trespasser is a very troubled game with a very troubled development, but it is more than just another bad game to be added to the pile along the likes of big rigs over-the-road racing. I think that all fans of Jurassic Park should either play this game or at least look into it, as there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. And now we reach the last game on our list for today, and for it we'll be leaving the realm of Windows and be jumping back to the original PlayStation for the Lost World tie-in game. So without any further ado, let's talk about the fighting game that is Warpath Jurassic Park. Warpath was released in October of 1999 for the original PlayStation and was developed by Black Ops Entertainment. As I mentioned, Warpath is a fighting game in the vein of Mortal Kombat and Primal Rage. All of the fighters are dinosaurs, some of which have not appeared in the films or had not yet done so as of the release of this game. And some of the dinosaurs are not playable and only feature as AI opponents. The number of playable characters is pretty large and includes Acrocanthosaurus, Giganotosaurus, Ankylosaurus, Stygimoloch, Megaraptor, Styracosaurus, Suchomimus, and Tyrannosaurus, with even more unlockable characters including Triceratops, a grossly outdated Spinosaurus, and others. The game features 14 different stages, with many based on locations that have appeared in the films, such as the Isla Nublar helipad and the 76 gas station from the ending of The Lost World. It has a variety of modes including Arcade, which is the main mode, Versus, which allows you to play against a friend on a second controller, Practice mode, Survival mode, which is basically an endless horde mode, Team mode, and a Museum, which allows you to look at and learn information about the different dinosaurs that are in the game. The game's soundtrack was composed by Michael Giacchino like the previous PlayStation game before it, and it's certainly no slouch. While I definitely say that The Lost World still reigns supreme in regards to the soundtracks we've listened to thus far, Warpath is still a great listen and really matches the atmosphere and tone of the game. Have a listen to some of my favorites. Visually speaking, it's about on par with The Lost World, with the dinosaurs and battle environments looking pretty good. The audio presentation is great as well, with the roars and attacks having a real weight to them. Now I must admit, fighting games are probably my weakest video game genre, and I suck at anything that isn't Super Smash Bros. And as such, I have never really been able to do very well with this game. And as my experience with fighting games is limited, I'm not really able to comment on whether or not this is great in comparison to others. However, as poor at it as I am, I do enjoy playing it from time to time, so I'd say that any Jurassic Park fan should be able to enjoy it, and as it's the only fighting game of its type in the franchise, it's certainly a unique entry into the series thus far. That, my friends, is it for The Lost World. This era of Jurassic Park games saw a large diversification amongst the types and quality of titles released, from 2D platformers to the first-person shooters. Between it and Jurassic Park, I think on the whole I prefer The Lost World's tie-in games simply due to variety, though I could certainly understand some preferring the Jurassic Park set of games. As for what's next, well, I guess you have to wait and see next month. Though those of you who are already familiar with the Jurassic Park release schedule can likely conjure up an idea of what's coming next. As always, I appreciate all of you for sticking around and watching the video, and if you haven't already, I'd love it even more if you were to hit that subscribe button and like the video. It really helps us out a lot. As I mentioned earlier, I've left all relevant links in the video description for you to check out if you're a fan of Trespasser or want to learn more about it. With that said, I hope you all have a lovely Halloween if you're watching this the day it's uploaded. If I put this out in time for Halloween, that is. And if not, I hope you're having a great day regardless. Until next time, This is Pokesaurus signing off.